Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Evan Brenner and I am the digital content coordinator here at Geographic Solutions, or digital content specialist, should I say. Today we are joined by a panel of folks from all over the United States and even internationally. And so I'm very excited to get into this. And I wanted to go ahead and take 1 minute very quickly here to send out a polling question before we get started. And if you can see that question, says poll in progress. Go ahead and just answer that question to the best of your knowledge. Also, while you're doing that, I would just like to ask if everybody can hear. Please go ahead and raise your hand if you can hear and if everything sounds okay to you. Okay, and wow, so working knowledge is in the lead with 63%, so that is awesome. And I'll keep it open for just another couple of seconds here. Okay, so I'm going to close. We had about 84% vote. Okay, we're getting close there. Couple more seconds just to go ahead and put in your vote. All right, and I'm going to close. And thank you very much. So go ahead here. All right, so we have a great presentation here today. A little bit about Geographic Solutions just before we get into this, and about our Pathway series. We hope that today you will learn something new, take away a best practice, or answer a burning question. I'd like you to meet today's panelists, and we will go ahead and get into introductions. So Dr. Roll, I'd like you to go ahead and introduce yourself and just say a few pieces.
Hi, yes, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be a panel with this amazing team. My name is Alexia Roll. I am the Director of Career and Technical Education and the Chair of the Miami-Dade College Apprenticeship Program at Miami-Dade College.
Thank you. And Jillian?
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jillian and I work for Allison, a free online learning and self-empowerment platform company. And I typically work with organizations and companies around the world who want to upskill their staff. I typically introduce them to our course catalog and discover their interests. And it's lovely to be here. And I look forward to meeting and supporting you all.
Thank you, Jillian. And over to Tara.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tara Cole. I serve as the program lead for the state-funded apprenticeship training program with the Texas Workforce Commission. Oversee the administration of state and federal grants to support and expand registered apprenticeship training programs. And I have over 20 years of experience in public workforce system, working in various capacities from grant management to legislative analysis.
Thank you. And last but not least, throwing it over to Daryl.
Hi, good morning. I'm Daryl Zach. I'm the Executive Director of Indiana's Office of Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeship, which is part of our Department of Workforce Development. Prior to standing this office up, just back in 2018, I was an executive for an aerospace manufacturing company. I've got over 20 years of experience in the world of aviation, aerospace, and defense work. I was also a governor-appointed state trustee for our nation's largest singly accredited community college here in Indiana, where I chaired our Workforce Development Committee. So it's really a combination of that industry experience where we definitely had a lack of skilled human capital. That became our #1 barrier to business growth. And the knowledge gained from building those successful partnerships and programs that really remedy that situation that landed me here. with a desire to really help other companies and individuals. So real happy to be here, share some insight, and I hope everybody has some good positive takeaways. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that a little bit of housekeeping. Go ahead and submit questions, all questions and comments, and we will discuss those at the end of the presentation when we are done with the questions that we have planned for today's program. So go ahead and put those in the question pane, and we will answer those at the end. So the first question I want to ask is, how do you work with apprenticeships in your region? And I will start with Alexia.
So as mentioned, I work at Miami-Dade College. And so here at Miami-Dade College, we were the first educational institution to be deemed program sponsor of apprenticeships. So with that, we are able to implement, develop, create, onboard apprentices at our will. So with that, we currently have 7 apprenticeship programs here at Miami-Dade College, meaning 7 different occupations. And I chair the committee and also manage the program itself in the department. So what we do is we work directly with Florida Department of Education, and we develop apprenticeships based on the need from our employers. Our employers contact the college. We serve as the related technical instruction provider, the training provider, as the students attend Miami-Dade College, either for credit, clock hour, or non-credit programs. And then, of course, coupled with the employers and our local workforce agency, which is CareerSource South Florida. So in our region, in Miami-Dade County, apprenticeships are new outside of the trades. I know we'll get into that a bit later, but just as an overview, what we do as the college is we train and employ. Our model here at Miami-Dade College is an apprenticeship is an earn as you learn program. And we want to make sure that our students are employed while they also receive their training, which they're learning at Miami-Dade College.
Thank you, Alexia. And over to Tara.
So Texas is an Office of Apprenticeship state, whereby the registration and regulatory function of apprenticeship programs take place at the federal level with the Department of Labor. With the state the size of Texas, the 6 DOL ATRs that are assigned to our region can't do it alone. Therefore, the state has staff that's been trained in DOL's foundational training to assist in the development of apprenticeship programs. Through this coordinated effort, Texas has registered 614 programs and over 22,000 apprentices. Texas has registered apprenticeships in occupations ranging from traditional construction trades, such as plumbers, electricians, carpenters, to industrial, maintenance, mechanic, tool, and die, to non-traditional, such as advanced manufacturing, healthcare, early childhood, and information security.
Thank you, Tara. And to Jillian, how do you work with apprenticeships in your region and, you know, in Ireland, which I think is great?
Yeah, so Allison largely serves a global audience, and we have learners in 195 countries. But we do have a concentration, a high concentration of learning coming from certain markets, namely the US, India, UK, South Africa, the Philippines, Pakistan, and Nigeria. But bringing it back to the US market, we understand that some states are larger than others in terms of population, but there's a steady stream of learning in California, Florida, Maryland, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. But for us, it's less about the region and more about making education and making courses available, freely accessible to disadvantaged groups of people all over the world. So we do partner with, you know, learners trying to, or workforce trying to break into markets with the necessary education through free online learning. And then we also partner with companies who want to get involved in upskilling from that perspective. So we work from at both ends. Thank you.
Jillian, thank you. And over to Jennifer with St. Petersburg College. How do you work with apprenticeships in your region?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm sorry that I'm late to join here. I was having some technical difficulties, but I'm very happy to be here and see everybody's faces. So St. Petersburg College is very new to apprenticeships. It's something that I actually started about a year ago, and I've been very excited to kind of learn how in our own community we're so focused on, as Jillian had said, upskilling, the workforce environment, helping employers, reduce turnover. A huge issue that's been across statewide, especially since COVID, has been, people being unemployed, trying to find jobs and skills. It's primarily been trade, but we've been excited to kind of now move apprenticeships towards even healthcare and IT, and that's been our biggest focus. And we're excited to expand that. But really our whole initiative here at the college has just been expanding the workforce community, being able to offer structured training and kind of just give a new facelift to the term apprenticeships. We've been solely working with IT, healthcare. I've recently worked with electrical line workers, and we continue to grow. We've been looking at solar. We're kind of just going along for the ride over here and seeing how we can expand and help the local community.
Thank you, Jennifer. And over to Daryl. How are you working with apprenticeships in your region?
Well, we're working a lot with them, and obviously we're having this panel discussion, so we know that work-based learning programs as a whole have really, in the past few years, really gained in prominence nationally as more employers are really recognizing the significance of engaging with the education system, right, to fill their talent needs. And for a long period of time, we had education doing their thing and businesses doing their thing, but that collaboration is really important, and we're starting to see more and more of that. The workforce shortage, really due to the pandemic, has reinforced this need as employers are searching for talent. So here in Indiana, we've taken deliberate steps to really ensure that education and industry are coming together. As a matter of fact, that's probably one of the most important things my office does is pull together those public-private partnerships. The office, as I mentioned earlier, stood up in 2018 as part of Governor Holcomb's Next Level agenda. And in just 3 years, we've really been successful in increasing the number of Hoosiers in work-based learning programs. When we look at registered apprenticeship, we've ranked as high as number 2 in the country for new apprenticeship programs and number 3 for completions, which is probably even more important. And while many workforce discussions are really revolving around talent attraction, we really look at these programs for talent retention as well. So when the office was being stood up, we knew that there was a need for an apprenticeship type program, maybe at the state level, that was not registered with the U.S. Department of Labor for several reasons. We still look at that as though it's the gold standard, but flexibility in program components and time, age restrictions for youth, companies not simply wanting to work with the federal government, and the stigma attached to that word apprenticeship. So we really developed a state level apprenticeship program called our Certified State Earn and Learn, or SEALs, as we call them, the acronym. They also get used as U.S. Department of Labor pre-apprenticeships. So they're designed, as others have said, it's really a work and learn experience, but along with the education skills and certifications that employers value. So we're really digging into what those skill sets are that employers are looking for, and not maybe just a single degree. So the programs have been designed for both adults and youth. They last anywhere from weeks to 2 years, and they all end in credentials, industry credentials, and college credit. So I know that Texas, Tara, you were talking about the federal programs and those folks in OA. It took many months, but my relationship with my federal state director became rock solid, which is what we really needed to do to be successful. So really full support of each other's programs instead of that us versus them that we see in a lot of other states. So they are similar, both registered apprenticeship and SEALs, but they really can differ in length and age requirements and so forth, as I said. Plus, we're actually doing with our SEALs now, we're rolling that into adult education. So we've got those adult learners that don't have a high school diploma yet. So they're getting their HSE, they're getting those industry certifications and employability skills all at the same time. So now in Indiana here, just within 3 years, we've got about 140 SEAL programs statewide and over 1,100 registered apprenticeship programs with close to Texas, about 20,000 participants.
Very nice, Daryl. Thank you. And going on to our next question. So in general, how are apprenticeships growing, or how have you seen apprenticeships grow since you've been in apprenticeships, or just your take on how the growth has happened over the last couple of years. And let's go back to Dr. Roll again.
Okay, so in my industry, apprenticeships have grown tremendously. As stated, we were the first educational institution in the state of Florida, and that was in late 2018, early 2019. So for that to be the case, we know that it's growing. The push from our president to our governor to our chancellor of career and adult education, our goal is to be #1, meaning Florida, the state of Florida, to be #1 in workforce by the year 2030. With that, we're seeing all the bills that have come out regarding apprenticeships here, especially in the state of Florida, and also many grants locally and at USDOL to support the development and sustainability for pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships. I would say here, in our region of Miami-Dade County, and even with Broward, the apprenticeships are growing most outside of the trade industry. So, we're used to seeing apprenticeships in welding and roofing, plumbing, electrician, etc. But even here at the college, our programs expand transportation, logistics. We have apprenticeships in business, in IT, automotive technician. So basically what we're doing is we're answering the call from the industry on where they need talent. We also have programs in development as far as teacher assistants, right? We need teacher aides, and we're looking into healthcare for CNA and nursing. So definitely expanding outside of the trades. And when it comes to our post-COVID world, it was a long haul for me to try to sell apprenticeships here in Miami-Dade County pre-COVID, but now in post-COVID, everyone needs talent. And that talent is those that are coming with hands-on experience. So clearly an apprenticeship, you're going to receive both when you onboard an apprentice. You're training, and I like to say molding your talent for the future, because those who you onboard as an apprentice, you want to keep them and keep them as your employees. And also they have the hands-on experience. At the college, we have a bit of a balance, because we have to make sure that we are still providing the post-secondary education as we promise our students, but we're morphing into definitely providing more work-based learning, okay, coupled with our courses. And apprenticeships is exactly that. Classroom training coupled with on-the-job training and a paid wage. So we're definitely making sure that we address that employment gap. We recruit to all of the community. We definitely stress to our employers that apprentices are not those with 2 years of experience. If you have 2 years of experience in occupation, you're no longer an apprentice, you're experienced, right? So we talk to our employers about that to make sure that, are you willing to train? Do you have a mentor on site that has the patience, the personality, the knowledge to train our apprentices? So with that, I will round it up, Evan, and basically say, outside of the trades, growing. In educational institutions are providing apprenticeship, growing. Funding opportunities have grown. So we're very excited on the expansion of apprenticeships in the States, and especially here in the state of Florida.
Alexia, that was great. Thank you so much. And I appreciate that you're, answering the call of industry. That's great. And so I'd like to go next over to Tara. Tara, how are apprenticeships growing in your area, or since you've been involved in apprenticeships?
So apprenticeships are becoming increasingly common, and to echo what some of the comments mentioned by Dr. Roll was, nationally, apprenticeship program expansion has gained momentum with consistent bipartisan efforts to expand registered apprenticeships through updated federal regulations, increased support for youth, and subsequently investments through the Department of Labor expansion grants, which Texas happens to be one of 4 states that has received all 4 or 5 releases, by the way, to support the design and delivery of training programs. Since I've come into this realm, since 2018, when we got our first accelerator grant, the number of registered apprentices in Texas has increased by more than 10,000. So that's pretty significant for us, and we have a long way to go. Businesses And a growing number of industries are starting to recognize apprenticeship represents an effective alternative to traditional approaches of attracting, preparing, and upskilling talent. On the other side of that coin, workers are seeing apprenticeship as a viable pathway to higher skilled jobs, increased earnings, and long-term job retention. Also in Texas, we are seeing apprenticeships becoming more integrated with the education and workforce training ecosystem. Articulation agreements between the registered apprenticeship sponsors and institutions of higher learning can now afford an apprentice college credit for coursework for completed in their training experience. These agreements establish clear degree pathways for apprentices to achieve the highest level of education and their full career potential.
Thank you, Tara. And to Jillian.
So one of Allison's established offerings is workplace skills and free industry training courses. So we have seen tremendous growth in the past 2 years. We have seen an increase from 15 million users to 23 million users, with over 1 million who have purchased certification in the last year. So we've seen some new courses break into our top popular list, which is showing us that there is a demand for digital skills, customer-orientated courses. Amongst the firm favorites of HR, project management, operations, and workplace safety and health, one of our top courses. But we've also seen a consistent high enrollments into your typical construction industry courses, like Dr. Roll said, from the trade perspective, but being overtaken by caregiving, nursing, pharmacy, first aid, and customer service skills. So there's definitely been a switch of these new emerging skills coming through the ranks. So that's from our side, Evan.
Thank you, Jillian. And over to Daryl. Daryl, how are apprenticeships growing, and how have you seen them grow?
Well, we're certainly changing the narrative on this, which is quite the battle sometimes, but it's coming along really well. You know, many have long thought of apprenticeships as that type of training program for those folks that couldn't make it in college, right? And, you know, that mentality has really been a barrier for realizing the much earlier, the potential success, anyways, that could be had by implementing those types of programs. In Indiana, we're kind of divided into 12 regions from a workforce development standpoint. So we set out in 2018 to really build a true statewide system, one that's focused on utilizing those 12 regional workforce boards. So within the last year and a half, all 12 workforce boards have become registered intermediaries with USDOL and are kind of playing that part. So I also hired my staff from around the state, from the regions where they actually work and live. And in building the system that way, we really accomplished two things. First is the gain of almost that immediate trust, because the schools and the businesses knew their regional or local workforce boards, and they likely knew my staff. So trust is that key ingredient in making most things work, and certainly in this case, when we're trying to change that narrative, right? Second is funding. The workforce boards are familiar with and really have numerous funding streams for training programs and the ability to braid those funds. So related to this is the state's ability to go after federal funding, which Tara talked about, for apprenticeship programs. After the first round of funding that we got and dispensed with via that normal RFP process, it really became clear to me that all future funding needed to be provided to the workforce regions, simply because they would know or should know how best to use it. And in doing so, we really gain efficiencies and effectiveness of program development. So in Indiana, apprenticeship programs are really growing because we're doing this statewide, but at the local level. And we deliberately spend those expansion funds in a way that's supported by other program and or philanthropic dollars. So a little more bang for the buck doing it that way. Awareness of what apprenticeship really is and the many benefits of the programs takes more than one conversation. And our governor and industry leaders are very supportive. And I think that that's really critical. If folks are going to get into this, I certainly suggest jumping in with both feet, and having the governor and a lot of the leadership from around the state has really helped.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Daryl. And over to Jennifer. How are apprenticeships growing in your area?
Pretty much everybody's hit the hit the nail on the head with apprenticeships, and it seems to be pretty cohesive statewide. I mean, nationwide. Florida has taken kind of that same step, and as Dr. Roll has said, being from college as well, that apprenticeships with the state, they're pushing so hard on them because it allows these job seekers and employees to become experts in their respective occupations. They're employer and employee driven. They allow the employees to be incentivized. I mean, they're getting certifications, they're getting statewide, nationwide recognized certifications in those occupations. So we're creating the stronger workforces, and it's creating cohesiveness within these organizations. A lot of employers I work with and I partner with love the fact that even if they have incumbent workers that have been there for 10 years, they can put them through this apprenticeship program, they can receive a certification, and all of them are getting the same structured training. They're not feeling like one person is above another person. It's creating that equality and just a better, and I feel like healthier work environment for both the employer and the employees, reducing turnover, all of that good stuff.
Thank you, Jennifer. And we're going to move on to our next question. So why is there a need for apprenticeships, and why now? I think it's a good thing to ask. So let's start with Dr. Roll.
So I'm just going to, I guess, expand upon what I stated when it comes to the industry need. And I'm going to speak again from a state college perspective. So what feedback that we have received from the employers is that they're in need of the students to be experienced with the actual occupation, being able to come on board and kind of hit the ground running, if you will. The credentials always assist, right? But depending on the occupation, are we speaking about being an accountant, or are we speaking about being an automotive tech? Are we speaking on, a culinary student, or are we speaking about someone who's going to be preparing our software development? So depending on the occupation, work-based learning, okay, internship, apprenticeships, clinical, practicums, co-ops, all of the above are extremely needed. The apprenticeships here in the state of Florida is exceptional because apprentices in the state of Florida are exempt from tuition. So what we have done here in the state of Florida is we've seen the need for talent. We know that the credentials are nationally recognized. So we have applied micro credentials, what we call accelerated credentials, where students can earn their credential and or industry certification without proceeding to an AS degree or a bachelor's degree. So what we've done is listen to the need, develop the programs, making sure that the competencies in these apprenticeship programs address exactly what our partners, our employer partners, want the apprentice to learn, right? So therefore, they're able to obtain that talent and train them in exactly the way they want the culture of their organization to be represented, and for how the student to learn the occupation in the fit for that specific organization. So we're addressing the talent. We are also partnering, or let me say designing our apprenticeship programs where the students can learn and earn an industry credential. And then also with this society, what people like to say, the microwavable society, where students don't necessarily, unless their occupation requires them to go on to a bachelor's degree, we have chosen this route where you're earning as you're learning, you're earning a salary, and going to attending college and learning a career. This is not a job, right? Our students are not working at the front counter at McDonald's. Instead, they may be learning to be a manager at McDonald's. Difference between a job and a career. Apprenticeships pipeline to a career, not a job. So I would say the need is because the students need attention now. They're not worried about 4 years or 6 years down the road. They need a job. The community needs employment now. The industry needs talent now. So that's the why now, because we're addressing the community, we're addressing the industry, and our community includes our students, and we're paying attention to them, to the new age millennial. What are we now? X, Z, Y? That's who we're addressing right now, making sure that we're listening to them and we're not set in stone on how we run programs. We're not set in stone on employment. We're going back to the basics. We need people in occupations that are outside even of IT at this point, right? They're saying that 50% of pilots will be retired within the next 5 years. How are we addressing that? There's a shortage when our elevators go out in our buildings, right? How are we addressing that? Right now with the remote learning, a lot of our healthcare facilities are asking for those to learn digital, okay, ways of sales and learning. How are we addressing that? So apprenticeships can be morphed, modeled, designed to the industry. That's why now, and that we need to employ now, not just in 4 years when a student earns their bachelor's degree. So I think apprenticeships is now.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And over to Tara, from the Texas perspective, why is there a need for apprenticeships? Why now?
So Texas needs to get back to work now in roles that help them to be part of the economic solution as the state recovers from challenges posed by the pandemic. We are seeing some critical labor shortages in various industries, and apprenticeships is a tool to assist in that. Our Governor Greg Abbott established the Tri-Agency Workforce Initiative. Through this initiative, 3 agencies, the Texas Education Agency, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and the Texas Workforce Commission, work collaboratively to help rebuild Texas and grow in economic prosperity by increasing higher education completion and workforce readiness. To do this, one of the overarching goals of this initiative is for Texas students to earn quality post-secondary credentials with skills that employers need, but to do so without taking on unmanageable debt. So apprenticeships will undoubtedly play a role in this, especially as the job market continues to transform. More and more businesses are relocating to Texas and seeking that talent pipeline, and schools are making a shift towards more work-based learning experiences. So apprenticeship is why now.
Thank you, Tara. And over to Jillian. In your opinion, or from your perspective, why apprenticeships and why now?
Yeah, so as we work with, lots of social businesses striving to deliver, educational resources to employers as well as to the man on the street, we're really coming to the realization that as more and more companies are becoming digitally transformed, some jobs or roles are becoming redundant, and in some cases, new roles are being created. But these are not necessarily new roles in the industry, but certainly new to the company because they're on a process of being transformed. So these shifts create skill gaps. And in some environments, depending on the size of their company or on the resources on the ground, have to take on multiple roles or additional tasks. And in some cases, where there is sufficient volume or demand for a service or a product, some jobs and roles can become more specialized. So as we live in a digital economy where service delivery is fast becoming a break or make standard, so companies are becoming more responsive to demand, as Tara was saying, and the need to be more agile in how they meet that demand is becoming quite key. So this is a perfect example of how apprenticeships can play a pivotal role in closing the gap by recruiting human resources and providing the necessary on-the-job training and skills in the short term. And really did echo the work-based learning, as Dr. Roll pointed out, as we are morphing and changing to meet that demand, I think apprenticeships can play such a powerful role in the short term.
Thank you, Jillian. And so, Daryl, over to you. And, when we had talked about this question, one of the things you mentioned is that maybe the college for all mentality is not working. So, from your perspective, why apprenticeships? Why now?
This could be a real long answer, but I'll keep it short.
I'd say go with 2 minutes if you can, but if it has to be 3, that's okay.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
I'll do it. I can do it.
Okay.
So it's simply a fantastic way to really train now a skilled and ready 21st century workforce, right? So we're using something from years ago to really work in a much better way. For years, you mentioned it, young people have really been made to believe that there's only one path to success, and that path was the same for for everybody, regardless of what their future aspirations may be. So across the country, as you said, that college for all mentality has really played a critical role in the mass amounts of individuals who are potentially overeducated, many of them in the wrong sector, underpaid and in excessive debt, ultimately with not really the skill sets that are valued by employers and those that lead to career advancement in today's economy. So we're now seeing historically low enrollments too in our colleges and universities for several reasons, and it's not just COVID. As a matter of fact, I'd say the traditional college student should really be redefined. We know that 1 in 5 is at least 30 years old. About half of them are financially independent from their parents. 1 in 4 is caring for a child, and about half of them are going to school part-time at some point. So, why we keep providing that same answer, even though a lot of things have changed clearly, we need to do something different. So this isn't really about college versus apprenticeship, especially with my colleagues on here. It's really about, how those can, and in many cases should, work together. And I can get into more detail later in that. But dollar for dollar, really no workforce training program packs as much punch as apprenticeship. So according to USDOL anyways, employers average a return on investment of about $1.47 for every dollar invested. And, work-based learning is for everybody. So I completely concur with everybody else, and especially with what Alexia said about meeting the demands of employers and really teaching skills in a better way. And I would certainly say, thank God we don't have just theoretical engineers or doctors, right? So they've all gone through work-based learning, or at least they should have, and I'm happy for that.
Jennifer, from the Tampa Bay, I guess I would say perspective, where we have a burgeoning tech scene growing here, why apprenticeships and why now?
So from an educational standpoint, what I found has been the most powerful as a college, I'm able to work directly with employers and individualize these programs to meet their specific needs and what they're looking for. From a college, we can create customized programs through our workforce development for these employers, and also just based on what the community needs are. I think it's amazing because, as everyone's expressed, that it's short-term training, and that's ultimately what employers are looking for. Short-term training, they're anywhere from 12 months to even 4 years. It's structure for the employers. And the employers, it grows jobs. As Jillian had said as well, it allows us to be aware of the deficits and gaps there are in employment from a community, regional, local level. The apprentices feel, that they can be groomed and enter these specific occupations with confidence because of that structured training. It adds value. It reduces, the turnover rates. It increases productivity. It's the lower cost recruitment. I always tell employers, apprenticeships should be built into your operational budget. It's the training that you should already be planning in when you hire on these employees. So there's so much different opportunity to be able to help local and regional communities.
Thank you, Jennifer. And right now we're going to switch over real quick here to another poll that we have. Let's just take a break. And if you can see that, please go ahead and vote in our poll. I will give about 1 minute, and we do appreciate your responses. And this is totally where I should have put some Jeopardy music in. So for my next panel, I will definitely do that. All right, in about 30 more seconds, a little less. Looks like yes is in the lead very slightly. 71% of the vote in. All right, and thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close, and going back over to Alexia. how can we break the stigma of apprenticeships? Not that there really is a stigma associated, but I think we all talked in meeting about this panel that maybe apprenticeships have had some sort of a stigma with them in the past. And so how do we break that?
So I think that we're beginning to break the stigma by going outside of the trades, right? So we are onboarding apprentices outside of those occupations mentioned earlier: HVAC, plumbing, welding, roofing, electrician, by onboarding and implementing occupations, as I mentioned before: IT, healthcare, business, education, etc. But I think we also need more buy-in from the employers. We need more buy-in from the unions and the associations, that the apprenticeships and apprentices are the way to go. We know that in other countries, this is a part of their secondary education, that while they're in high school, the students are definitely brought into and having to choose an apprenticeship and be a part of some sort of work-based learning. We want to do that here in Florida as well. We want to make sure that this is a career pathway, if you will, is chosen. We want to go back to that. I know that in the early 90s here in the state of Florida, students used to have to choose a vocation, if you will, and then it morphed to a career pathway. We kind of went away from that, sort of, kind of. We need to go back to that. But I will say, if we have the employer buy-in, if we have the associations also working with us, the workforce boards, the state colleges, etc., universities, then we will break the stigma. But the language also needs to change. Students hear words trade, vocational, blue collar, and they think low pay, they think uneducated, they think that it is a short, like kind of cheap pathway to a career. We need to start with changing the mindset, changing the verbiage, so students are more open to apprenticeships, more blue collar, what they used to call vocational, now career and technical education work. And I think then, as we change the mindset, change the verbiage, have the employers buy into apprenticeships, moving away from internships, because internships do not guarantee pay, and an internship doesn't necessarily align to a career. We all, I'm sure, have had to participate in some sort of an internship, and we were answering phones and filing papers. So I think that if we do that, then Evan, we can break the stigma, or at least start to break the stigma.
Thank you, Alexia. And over to Tara. In your viewpoint, how do we break the stigma?
So yes, apprenticeships are often misunderstood. So for the last few years, Texas has been engaging with businesses and educators to work towards building awareness about the apprenticeship model as a modern approach to training that can work in many industries and career paths, anywhere competence needed, really. So under the Apprenticeship Texas brand, TWC staff guide and efficient approach to registered apprenticeship, and we serve as a gateway to workforce services. Being the workforce development agency, we have an arsenal of tools available to employers if we find that apprenticeship isn't right for them. So through Apprenticeship Texas, we provide foundational and tailored outreach and technical assistance to prospective employer sponsors, current registered apprenticeship programs, and other stakeholders to facilitate the development, implementation, and growth of registered apprenticeship programs. Our services span from exploration of apprenticeship to possible workforce partners where maybe a training facility is needed, such as a community college or an intermediary, program design and the application process, even to the launch. We will hold the hand of a registered apprenticeship sponsor and the startup and launch of their program, because our focus in Texas is sustainability. Once we set up a program, we want to see it succeed and continue on.
Thank you, Tara. And over to Jillian.
Thanks, Evan. I think from our perspective, we have really been working and having a big communication campaign around the stigma that degree is more valuable than a diploma. And so we've been putting a lot of effort there in the sense that a diploma gives you hands-on skills and gets you into the narrative around your work-based work. So that has been a constant communication strategy that we've been working on largely around in 2021. But as my colleagues here on the call are saying, is that an apprenticeship is an industry-driven, it's a career pathway. And often people see this as a dead-end kind of vocation, and we need to kind of change that mindset around that. But as Daryl said earlier, we are also trying to prepare for a future workforce, and as Dr. Roll was saying, it's about also the paid work component is a very important component. Especially there's a short-term skills gap at the moment that needs to be closed. And so to answer the question, I think what we have seen, and certainly from where we're sitting, is that we need to educate through communication campaigns and to showcase proof points that apprenticeships can offer a meaningful career pathways at any life stage. So there's always this thing that somebody's trying to enter the workforce, but certainly whether you're a job seeker with no formal education looking to enter the workforce or looking to pivot into a completely different direction. And certainly within the pandemic, we've seen a lot of career changes. People have reevaluated what is important for them and making career changes that work for them under these conditions. So we need to educate employers and individuals alike that it is for all industries, as Dr. Roll had mentioned, and we need to move beyond the traditional perception from its construction-related industry roots, and we need to not think in a linear fashion of a career, but often it is a multiple flight path. You go forward here, you change direction, and you move, and that needs to be seen as acceptable. We don't necessarily go from intern to apprenticeship to junior to senior to executive. We have to break that stigma that life takes on different journeys, and people bring skills and transferable skills to every post that they work in. So that's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. And to Daryl.
So the best way, simply share our success stories. Whatever they are or wherever they are. Apprenticeship, as I commented earlier, apprenticeship should not really be separate from education. It should be woven into that system as really the instructional model that provides even more pathways to success for more students, whether that's youth or adults. Work-based learning really adds an important new dimension to that educational toolkit, one that's engaging for learners, certainly cost-effective for employers, and really begins to tackle that issue of the rising student debt that I talked about as well. Here in Indiana, it adds exponentially to our our credential attainment goal as well. So through though apprenticeships are often associated with the construction trades that were mentioned earlier, that's not always the case. So other examples of Indiana's SEALs that I talked about earlier in apprenticeships can be found in advanced manufacturing, transportation, logistics, healthcare, and IT is really gaining in momentum. So one of my own children who joined a healthcare company while she was still in high school, she's currently a USDOL registered apprentice through her employer, and she's attending college full-time in a registered nursing program. Manufacturing also has a stigma. Coming out of that field, even aerospace manufacturing has that stigma that it's a dirty, low-paying job. One of the most important things I did at the aerospace manufacturing company that I was most recently working for was starting evening open houses, not just for the students, but the key was to bring parents with them. So once they saw it was really a clean, high-tech environment, and there was a program like apprenticeship that would train and educate and pay at the same time their children, for little or no cost to them, then we had them hooked. And as surprising as it may be, kids still listen to their parents. So having that buy-in is very important. So it is the employers, it's the educators, it's the parents, and it's the students, again, youth and adult. So one more quick statistic for you. since more employers are really realizing the benefits of apprenticeship. Nationally, we've got nearly 26,000 registered apprenticeship programs that are currently active, with more than 3,100 new programs this last fiscal year. So we've seen about a 73% increase since just 2009. So it is working. We're getting out there. The stigma is still there, but we got to continue telling the good stories.
Excellent. Thank you, Daryl. And over to Jennifer. How do we break the stigma?
Yes, so pretty much I go by the fact that apprenticeships are essentially a training model. It's a training model at the end of the day for employers. It includes that quality education component as well as experiential learning. And coming from a college viewpoint, a lot of people have confused apprenticeships with internships. And that's just, I mean, they're similar, but they're not the case. Apprenticeships cannot happen without an employer and apprentice. And kind of breaking the stigma is there's people from all different backgrounds that go into apprenticeships. I work a lot with healthcare, and a lot of them, they do have college degrees. And then they come into an apprenticeship looking to get a specific certification that the employer will pay for. Apprentices don't pay anything out of pocket. And, you know, it's a completely different avenue for them because they're coming in with an education. And then you have people that, you know, they've been in the position for 20 years and now they're going in having to get 4 different certifications. So now they're kind of aligning what they've done hands-on with the educational component. So I think what breaking the stigma is the fact that there's so many different people from all different backgrounds that can go into these programs and still, you know, receive that educational component and the on-the-job training. Just breaking the stigma is showing that there's just so many different roles and different positions. As Daryl had mentioned, the nursing, we have a lot of like healthcare where an apprenticeship can be like a nursing resident. And it's things that you didn't think about before because we think of the trades, but it's just showing that, again, it's a training model. It's something for employers to follow to help their organization and to grow and expand and again, make those employees feel valued and driven.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. And one more question, and after this one, I think we're going to try and break over to our questions from the audience, and we do have quite a few. So, and I do thank everybody for submitting those questions, and I know we're kind of getting close to the end here of our allotted time. So another question that I had is, where can agencies find funding? Like, so where are some general tips, or if somebody is out there who is looking for some help in general, and this doesn't have to just be for funding, but just, you know, for best practices, or to, you know, to help with, you know, doing their jobs better and take something back to their agencies. What are your tips for those things? And starting with Alexia.
So I'll keep it short because I know we're close to time, as you stated, Evan. For us, it is grants, of course, charging employer fees. Employers, the wages normally for apprentices are a bit lower. And then for us at Career Source South Florida, with our being our partner, we subsidize for the wages, at least 50% in most of our occupations. So that savings the employer can put towards that, the education of the apprentice. So that's funding as well. And in addition, for us as a program sponsor, I also sponsor other apprenticeship programs. So it's almost like a consultant, where that helps with us sustaining the Miami-Dade College apprenticeship program. So I would say grants, employer fees, and maybe even some contractual services, if you will.
Thank you, Alexia. And I will switch back to Jennifer for the answer for next for this one.
Yes, so we actually have partnered with Miami-Dade College for braided funding. So that's the great thing about being a college is we partner with Career Source and different organizations to be able to offset costs. And there's so much opportunity right now within the state of Florida with funding that comes down. So if we can't necessarily maybe get a grant, we'll partner with another college that has access to that funding. The braided funding is such a huge opportunity because there's so many different things that might get lost that an employer, you know, maybe can't pay for, or they'd like to get for their apprentices that we can buy. It's been great. We've even bought tablets for apprentices. We've bought in uniforms. There's a lot of things that we've been able to cover and partner with other organizations. So that's kind of what we've been doing lately for funding.
Thank you, Jennifer. And over to Daryl. A couple of, you know, tips or best practices for where agencies can find funding.
Well, federal programs for sure. The U.S. Department of Labor, I mean, it's been several $100 million that they've rolled out over the past 5+ years for the expansion of apprenticeships. So I know Texas and Indiana both have really taken advantage of that. We don't see that slowing down in the near future. I think in addition to these dedicated apprenticeship funding programs, then state agencies can actually act as a pass-through and/or a coordinator for federal funding. Here in Indiana, the governor and state legislature have also supported using state funds for what we call employer training grants and workforce ready grants to help both businesses and individuals obtain the training and industry credentials in high wage, high demand occupations. On the youth side, look into the schools, the secondary schools, the career and technical education funding. Our youth fields are built to really take advantage of that funding. And then also through WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, federal student aid funds like Pell Grants, the GI Bill for veterans, which many people don't understand. There's also stipends available through the GI Bill for books and supplies, as well as monthly housing allowance. So when we start looking at some of those barriers from a transportation, housing, and so forth to success in this, those types of programs can really help. U.S. Department of Agriculture and Transportation also has funds. So I always suggest that people stay focused on driving down the net cost to both the employers and the individuals, not necessarily paying for everything. I think in that way, it kind of stays real and everybody's got skin in the game as well.
Thank you, Daryl. And over to Jillian.
Thanks, Kevin. I think from our side, from Allison's perspective, I can't answer the question in terms of agencies finding funding, but certainly, any agency or workforce who wants to work with Allison, there's no fee, everything we offer is free training, learning platforms, free courses. So it's really is a free service, and we encourage as many agencies and workforce boards to work with us and offer a free resource.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Jillian. Over to Tara.
I can't say anything more than what's already been mentioned, other than Texas has the WIOA funding at which is available at any one of our 28 local workforce development boards. We too also have expansion dollars and state level funding initiatives that we support to support apprenticeship growth, and tax credits. Tax credits can range from anywhere from $1,200 to $9,600 for each qualified employee hired. So.
Thank you, Tara. You know what? I'm just going to throw one final question here for the speed round. Let's just go ahead and go through with this. Yes, we are right at about noon, but if everybody is still with us here, and I think they are, thank you for again joining us for this panel. Best practices for working with employers, and I would just like to go ahead and start first with Jennifer, and we'll go from there.
So what I have found that with apprenticeships that over the course of the short year and some change that I've done with St. Petersburg College, that the best practice with working with employers is just being patient. And because they're employer driven, I really am at the needs of my employers. I want to always make sure that they feel supported and everything is driven through what they want. I'm constantly working as a liaison between my employers and the state to ensure that their standards are always up to what they're looking for. They can always be modified. I just let them know that basically anything that they need, everything is modifiable. So just knowing that at the end of the day, it's about the employers, it's about their employees, and being listening and coherent and patient.
Thank you, Jennifer. And over to Daryl.
So really, this is, as I mentioned, even in the opening remarks, this is what kind of drove me into this business, because we knew that human capital was simply the barrier to success in the business, not just growing the business, but day to day. So I would say the most important thing is to simply listen. So if you're a provider for this or helping them get through that, listen to their needs, offer multiple solutions, help them find the best solution. Here in Indiana, we're really trying hard to work with businesses to go from those old job descriptions into a list of relevant skill sets. That really helps us identify both the on-the-job training and the related technical instruction, and not just focusing on the one piece of paper that they think is needed, as there is really no one-size-fits-all solution. I think it's a balance between what a company believes they can handle and showing them what really works and what really can be done. Oftentimes they're hiring nowadays, their hair's on fire every day, just looking for warm bodies. But I think if you can get them to kind of slow down, understand that having multiple pathways that feed their talent pipeline is important, whether they're talking youth or adults, long-term, short-term solutions. You know, what we really did and what I really try to help businesses understand is as the economy ebbs and flows, so should their talent pipeline. So I think one other key to success is making sure that people are talking to the decision makers, actually engaging with higher level company staff and understand that it takes more than one meeting because you're asking them to do something that's very different than what they've probably done before.
Thank you, Daryl. And over to Jillian.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. I think each organization has very different skill priorities, and we all can accept that, but they all face the same challenge. And that it takes time and commitment from both employers and staff when it comes to apprenticeships. For training managers, they need time to drive active learning through employee motivation and apprentice motivation. And for employees, they need to find the necessary time for upskilling. So it's important that I think employers give employees or the staff or apprentices time to actually earmark training hours, which they can either use at a dedicated set time during office hours or at a time which is convenient for them. So certainly making time for upskilling is a challenge. And I think we need to have a more structured approach around training for time.
Thank you, Jillian. And Tara, best practices for working with employers.
I think Texas takes the same employer-focused approach. We listen to pain points expressed by employers. We weave in how apprenticeship models can address specific challenges and how apprenticeships can fold into their normal day-to-day business practices for recruitment, onboarding, administration. We speak their language when discussing strategies and models. Sometimes there's a disconnect with our terminology versus what an employer's terminology or perspective is. And we work hard to minimize any concerns or apprehensions they might have in moving forward with apprenticeship. And then
go ahead.
Touting those successes, back to the point made earlier, touting successes, testimonials from employers, sharing why an employer chose the apprenticeship route and what benefit they've seen out of it. That really works well in Texas.
Thank you, Tara. And finally, over to Alexia.
I would just say that for us, our secret sauce has been the flexibility to develop programs specifically for that employer, and also working with our local workforce board, which targeted specific populations, what they would call the underrepresented populations, and therefore able to subsidize the wage for our employers. So I would say that be flexible, be very timely in responding with the employers, and also get with your local workforce board, Career Source South Florida for us, and also our Economic Development Council, which is Miami-Dade Beacon Council, has been successful with partnering with us about developing apprenticeship programs.
Excellent. Thank you, Alexia. And now we're going to go to a few questions that have been submitted during this presentation. So I would like to bring on my co-organizer, Megan. And Megan, if you want to go ahead and just pop on and ask a few of the questions that have been submitted by the audience, that would be great.
Hello, sure. We have a few questions, and some of them have already been answered. So what I would do is I would just try to go through. There were some questions about grants and funding, which we touched on, also regarding some of the apprenticeship stigmas. And one of the other questions is, will this information be shared via email? And yes, it will be shared. It's been recorded. And so we will send it out to all of the attendees. Some of the other questions, and I have a question for Dr. Rowland, for Jennifer. It says, how many employers are your colleges working with, and how have you been recruiting to reach out to them?
So I'll start. So right now we have, as I stated, 7 occupations, but we have a total of 15 employers. So depending on occupation, so for example, my transportation logistics specialist or customs broker occupation, we have 4 local employers that we are working with. For teacher assistant occupation, we have 5 employers that we are working with. So depending on occupation is how many employers that we have onboarded with. We decided the college to what we call develop occupational programs instead of employer-based programs. So once we register the program with the state, we're always willing and able to onboard additional employers that's interested in that same program. And how we're recruiting to them, again, with our workforce agencies, we're sending out blasts via social media and LinkedIn stating that we are developing and looking for employers to partner with, but also when you attach yourself with the chamber, with Career Source South Florida and the Beacon Council, they're letting us know which employers are in need.
Perfect. And another question for you, Dr. Roll. Someone asked, what are the 7 different, I guess, occupations or industries that you're currently working with at Miami-Dade College?
Sure. So we have help desk technician, network support is the IT industry. 2 occupations in the trade and logistics, which is transportation and logistics specialist, and a customs broker. Or 2 in transportation logistics. Under business industry, we have operations manager, advanced manufacturing. We have 2 programs in automotive technician. One is a 1-year, another is in a 2-year program. Aviation, we have aviation maintenance, aircraft structure assembler is in our aviation program. So I think I named our 7. Maybe I did, I don't recall. But either way, those are our 7 occupations that are currently registered, and as stated, we have 3 that are also in development. So we're hoping to have 10 registered apprenticeship programs before the end of 2022.
Perfect, thank you. And Jennifer, that same question for you. How has St. Pete College been working with various employers, and how have you all been recruiting and reaching out to these said people?
Yes, so I guess unfortunately on my side, because we're still growing and really I'm a one-woman show over here with a couple admin specialists, so we're still kind of newbies in the field of apprenticeships. So we really only work with about 5 to 6 employers right now. And really the main focus has been just kind of right now we're working on a huge kind of partnership in housing bodies. A lot of my efforts have been there, but really it's been attending different job fair events, like talking locally, like connecting with different employers and their connections that they have. I do post a lot on LinkedIn and try to stay active. So I mean, probably what will happen in the future is I'll get a hold of Alexia here and ask her how they've been marketing and doing that as we choose to expand. But really it's been just trying to make as much networking connecting with different organizations and other colleges.
Perfect, thank you. Daryl, I have a question for you. It says traditionally federally certified apprenticeships often take years. Today's employers, particularly in the areas of construction and marketing, need skilled and trained employees. How does your sales program deal with the need for workers now? And how short are some of your programs?
Sure, great question, and that's very true. And one of the reasons that when we stood the office up, we looked at doing something a little bit different, and it wasn't just because we didn't want to do something with the federal programs, it was to be able to take care of the customer, right, and in those situations that you just talked about. So right now, our certified state earn and learns, they last anywhere from, I think the shortest is about 8 weeks up to 2 years. And I will say that on the federal side, I think they're starting to listen to industry quite a bit, because they did for that short period of time, they came out with that industry recognized apprenticeship program. And I think that had to do with some of this. I know for sure within the last couple of years, I've seen more 12-month and 18-month registered apprenticeship programs come out of USDOL as well. So I do believe that they're listening, but certainly we needed something else to take care of those more short-term requirements, if you will, both on the adult and the youth side, because adult solutions are typically reactive they're reacting to some demand right now. And on the youth side, even those are a little bit more proactive. You've got time to work through them.
Perfect. And there was a second part of that loaded question. It says, does your sales program also bring in non-students? For example, middle-aged workers looking for a new career path?
Yeah, absolutely. So underemployed, unemployed, and then people just looking for that career change. The other piece is, and I mentioned it before, not just again about that talent attraction or initial skilling, but upskilling and looking at incumbent workers as well. So they work across the board for each one of those situations.
Perfect, thank you. Jillian, I have a question for you. It says, I think you mentioned something about some of the classes that are offered, and they wanted to know, did you say that the classes are free? And if so, what type of courses that you all have?
Yeah, so it's an online course. All our courses are free. They are online. So it's not a classroom style. It's self-paced online learning. So you can choose when you want to study and where. Our typical certificate courses are 3 hours, anything from 90 minutes to 3 hours if you sit in one sitting. And our diploma courses range from about anything from 5 hours to 8 hours, depending on the subject matter as well as the difficulty. And the, you know what, we have about, Megan, we have got about 3,500 courses covering about 9 categories from IT, marketing, sales, you know, certainly international standards, you know, the ISO, very popular, HR, most of the industries are covered in some shape or form on our platform.
Perfect, thank you. I'm not sure who would like to answer this question, but we had a question. If someone can please explain exactly what clock hours are. Maybe one of our educators. Dr. Roll, maybe.
I'm Jen, I see you. I don't know if you were unmuting. So at the college, we have 3 models, if you will, to obtain credit at the college. We have credit hour programs, which you all know, college credit, AS degree, bachelor's degree, AS is 60, bachelor's 120 credit hours. Clock hours are just, the programs are more so our hands-on curriculum. They are evaluated based on the actual number of hours that you are sitting in the classroom. So they're called clock hour programs, but they convert to credit as well. And then, of course, we have our professional development, if you will, professional education side of the house, which is non-credit. And someone may register to our non-credit side of the house, let's say for AWS Cloud certification or CompTIA Plus certification. And it is a prep course for industry certification or a prep course for Microsoft Office. And depending on that non-credit or prep course, that also can be matriculated or articulated into college credit or clock hour. So just know that credit hour and clock hour, you're going to receive college credit. Non-credit, that is more workforce development or industry certification prep courses, etc.
Perfect, thank you. We had another question, and I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but there was a few questions in, and it asks, what is the true difference between an apprenticeship and an internship? Whoever wants to take that one.
Maybe it might be directed towards me because I gave the comparison a bit earlier, so I'll take that. What I like to tell the employers is first one, right? So an apprenticeship has to have 4 components from the onset. Must have classroom training, on-the-job training, a paid wage, and a mentor, right? So there, we know that an internship can definitely be experienced without you having classroom training coupled with it. An internship also can be facilitated without a paid wage. So those are 2 things that differentiate from the onset of it. But I also like to go into that when it comes to an apprenticeship, upon completion of that apprenticeship program, the student will receive a certificate of completion from said state or USDOL, Department of Labor, depending on how the apprenticeship is registered. So you're ending this apprenticeship program with a credential that is industry recognized and nationally recognized, which with an internship you do not. Also, we like to differentiate between a job and a career. An apprentice definitely has chosen this career pathway. They have decided to venture into some sort of what we call related technical instruction, RTI, classroom training, and they're going to have, if it's a registered apprenticeship program in Florida, at least 2,000 hours of on-the-job training with that employer at their site, and being paid. And there must be at least one wage increment in the state of Florida. If you're starting at $15, you need to start at another, end at a salary that shows that you have received one wage increment. So with those components, we have to differentiate between apprenticeship. And I want to hold on, Megan, to the earned, recognized credential, okay, the paid wage, and a career versus a job. Those are the three things that I hold on to with the difference between internship and apprenticeship.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yes.
And this is another question. It says, do any programs work with individuals with disabilities? And if this population would qualify for a minority, they will be at the largest, like 26%. So do you all know of any programs that work with specifically with people with disabilities?
Yeah, all of them can, quite honestly. So again, it depends on what the disability is and what the occupation is, but those are things that we've definitely rolled into. And again, that's part of that outreach and getting to know what your community is, the makeup of that community, what employers are there and what the needs are. But we've done that both inside with registered apprenticeship programs and even our state earn and learns we've built for companies that are employing people with disabilities.
Perfect. Another question. Oh, did anybody, you wanted to add something, Jennifer? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just was going to say that actually one of the grants that we were awarded from the state involves specifically, not disabilities in specific, but like minority populations, like targeting populations that were underrepresented. And especially for our IT industry, they wanted to target specifically vets, minorities, like women, people that weren't, that they lacked in their specific environment. So that's something that we constantly are stressing. And I know our state of Florida stresses, and I'm sure across wide Department of Labor stresses for diversity. So.
Thank you. The next question is, how are non-trades and trades being paid?
I'm sorry, the question
What do you
is,
mean by that?
yeah.
It just says, how are the non-trades and trades being paid for?
So I think, well, an apprentice is onboarded, fully onboarded by the employer. So an apprentice is an employee. So regardless of the occupation being trade or non-trade, if that's how you're defining it, just know that we require for the apprentice to be onboarded. Now, the job description may differ. You know, some job descriptions has the actual occupation, some say trainee, some say apprentice, but they're being paid by the employer. If we have grants to assist and we can provide, you know, wage reimbursement or subsidy, or like I said, with Career Source South Florida, for my institution, we also do that, but they're paid by the employer.
Perfect, thank you.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, you can, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when we talk about reimbursement to the employer, again, there's that piece that we talked about earlier, skin in the game, right? If we're reimbursing employers with grant dollars, typically that is because there is that expectation of lower performance, perhaps. Usually we're paying for the OJT, the actual training, the training provider, the mentor, and so forth. We're not paying wages directly to that apprentice. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Texas is the
Perfect,
same.
thank you. Okay. The next question is, are the apprenticeships catered for ex-offenders who have been involved in justice involved background, sorry. So are the apprenticeships catered for ex-offenders who have justice involved backgrounds?
It sounds like that would be like questions to the employer. Like we really, when I model the program with employers, it's really at their discretion what they choose when they hire on. I think that's more individualized to each employer and organization of what they look for in criteria for the apprentices. And that's usually written in their standards on what they require for each apprentice to be onboarded into the program.
Perfect.
Sorry, Daryl, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, quite all right. I agree with that, but I'd also say, at least in Indiana, with our state prison system, we actually have registered apprenticeship programs within the prison system itself. We have a couple of different industries that are run by the State Department of Corrections, and being able to employ those offenders in those programs is part of the OJT component to the registered apprenticeship. So we're actually running registered apprenticeships within the Department of Corrections.
Perfect, thank you. Another question is, someone stated that they like the idea of apprenticeships expanding outside of the traditional industry norms. And now it seems that we're headed towards like electric vehicle evolution or an era. Has there been a special focus in this area for apprenticeships?
I didn't hear the area, Megan, I'm sorry.
With just the era of electric vehicle evolution, has there been any special focus on apprenticeships for this era of having like electric vehicles?
So for us, yes, we have two, as I stated, automotive technician programs, and one of our employers definitely has a fleet, of EVs, and so therefore they're definitely, I should have left it as flu, right? We're going to be flying soon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, we have had several requests for electric vehicles and to develop apprenticeship programs for electric vehicles solely, but in the interim, Megan, the competencies are both for manual and EVs for our current apprenticeships.
Perfect, thank you. Another question, it says, what percent of apprenticeship applicants are veterans? Does anyone know? No, okay. And the last question. Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the goals that we have, I would say that we're putting that at about 10%. But again, you know, that's going to vary from state to state depending on where these veterans actually land when they're done with service.
Perfect, thank you. And our last question that we have is, what types of incentives do most employers offer to participate in various apprenticeships?
Wow, that can actually range quite a bit. I think one of them is a top-notch training and education program, and having very little cost or no cost to that is a huge incentive. And the ones that are using it right, again, it's not just talent attraction, but retention. If you can usually put these programs in place and show somebody how they can move through and up through the company, that's a huge plus. So again, when you're looking at turnover and retention rates, apprenticeship, certainly our state Earn and Learn that's right there with those, really is positive for both of those things. So again, there's a lot that comes with the apprenticeship piece. I just see it as an excellent model for companies.
Perfect, thank you. That's all the questions. Back over to you, Evan.
Thank you, Megan. Excellent moderation. And I just wanted to say, Jennifer, Alexia, Jillian, Tara, Daryl, thank you so much for your time today. I have put your contact information up here, but please, to the audience, if you would like to ask additional questions or if you have comments, just reach out to us. You can reach out to events@usdollink.com. Just wanted to wrap up and say thank you so much for joining us today. There was an abundance of great questions. There was some great information shared. We are going to share the resources with a special landing page in the days to come. It will have a video recording of this, plus the presentation and some other stuff. So please look out for that in the coming days. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.